Hey guys, Nike here. It's been a little while since I updated my Condi, Banner Slave, whatever warrior you want to call it, rotation guide, and I felt that now that there's a viable Power Warrior Banner Slave build in the meta, that I should include that. And so what I'm going to do is go over the rotation for both the Condi warrior build, as well as the Axe Power Warrior and the Axe Greatsword Power Warrior, and do the rotations in slow motion so you can kind of get an idea of what to do with each, and I'll point out any weirdness that comes up along the way. So with that said, let's get right to it, and we'll start off with the Condi Warrior. Alright, so for Condi Warrior, you're going to start with Torch 5, Torch 4, Shattering Blow, Headbutt as normal, into Berserk, and a Flaming Flurry. This should be very familiar. You will swap to Longbow, Fan of Fire, Burst, Heal, Burst again, Pin Down, and then you're going to auto in Longbow until your Fan of Fire comes up, and then another Burst skill. And then you'll continue to auto. Shattering Blow when it's off cooldown. The final Burst, Fan of Fire, swap back, Torch 4, Torch 5. And then you're going to continue to auto attack with your sword. Here's where it's going to change a little bit from previous versions. When your Berserk is off cooldown, you are not going to immediately activate it. The key is that what we're looking to do every other time through the rotation is get a second Torch 5. So you see our Berserk is off cooldown. We're going to let it go until we have about 3 exactly seconds, maybe like 2.7, 2.8. Then activate it, then Flaming Flurry, and then Torch 5. Swap back and repeat the Longbow rotation as before. As you'll see, when the Longbow rotation is over and we go back to Sword Torch, the Torch 5 is not going to be off cooldown. You'll have to wait 3 or 4 seconds before you're able to use it. What this means is that the rotation will loop as normal. However, the difference is that every other time through the rotation, you'll get 2 casts of Torch 5, and every other time opposite that, you'll only get 1. It is a nice little DPS increase. It's actually relatively manageable in a real raid situation. So you can keep it up, and it's essentially the same rotation as before, except for that little change. There's really not much else to say, so I'm not going to let the entire rotation play out, because it pretty much is that on a loop, but hopefully that helps you Condi warriors out there. Alright, so the Axe build. Unlike the other two builds, this build doesn't really loop, so it's more about focusing on principles. Your opening is you're going to heal, Axe 3, Bolus, Eviscerate, and then do your money skills 2, 3, 4, and Axe 5. So you're getting everything in during the peak performance. So regarding the principles, you're going to have to kind of improvise as you go along with this, because it doesn't loop perfectly. The key is that you don't want to interrupt your auto chain whenever possible, especially if you're already into double or triple chop. You can use your Eviscerate to fill in. Eviscerate's slightly better than an auto attack, but for the most part, you want to use your 2, 3, 4, and 5 skills whenever possible off cooldown, and you never want to use Axe 5 unless you're getting your peak performance buff. It's pretty straightforward. You're going to see even this slowed down that there are times where I do like one auto attack. It's inevitable when you're doing this, especially with quickness, because you just don't have the ability to make the presses quite perfectly. And you can't really help it. And there's going to be times where your good skills only have like 1/10 of a second of cooldown left, and you have really no choice but to get the auto in. But for the most part, as you can see, what you want to do is get the the throw bolus followed by as many of your money skills as you can. You don't really want to waste the peak performance buff on auto attacks whenever possible. So you're going to inevitably always wait for Axe 5 and whatever else you can get in with the throw bolus. I'll let this go a little bit so you can kind of get an idea of how it goes, but the thing to take away from this is that since it doesn't loop, you're going to have to kind of think one step ahead. So while you're doing your Axe 5, you have to look kind of at your cooldowns and go, okay, what's going to be off cooldown next? Okay, my 2 and 3 are going to be off cooldown, so I'll do those next. And then I can eviscerate, and then I won't have to go into my auto attack chain. And then you can be pretty sure that after the auto attack chain, your number 3 will be off cooldown, and then you can do number 4, and then number 2 again. And you can kind of map this out in your head, and the more you play it, the easier it becomes to map these out in your head sort of long term. And I think one thing that really helps, a tip I would have, is to not forget that Throw Bolus does have a cast time. You might see that you have like half a second or even a second left on your Axe 5 cooldown, and it's like, well, I don't want to start an auto attack chain now because I don't want to. Then I won't be able to interrupt it for a few seconds, and my Axe 5 will just be sitting there. What you can do is you can do Throw Bolus, and that will eat a second or half a second of the cast time, and then maybe you only have to do like the first hit of your auto chain before the Axe 5. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to do that. So really, you can use the casting time of Throw Bolus to kind of cover you a little bit when you're waiting for other skills to come off cooldown. So yeah, that's it. I'll let this go for a little bit longer, and then we will move on to the greatsword build. Alright guys, so the greatsword axe rotation is very smooth and fluid. It loops really well. As always, you start with your heal. You're going to do an greatsword 4 and then switch to axe before it goes live to do an axe 3, bolus, eviscerate, then 2, 3, 4, 5 as normal with the axe mace build or the axe build. Where it's going to get a little different is you're going to auto attack for a little bit until your eviscerate comes up again. You're going to bolus again, then eviscerate, and then do axe 2 and 3, and then swap to greatsword, arcing slice, followed by 100 blades, whirlwind attack, and then blade trail. After the blade trail, you should have just enough time to throw another throw bolus, and then maybe get one greatsword auto, and then your arcing slice should be off cooldown, and you can go back to axe, do 2, 3, 4, and 5, and get the axe 5 in while you have peak performance. So this is going to be the loop from here on out. After the axe 5, you'll eviscerate, axe 2, axe 3, back to greatsword, arcing slice, 100 blades, whirlwind attack, blade trail, bolus, arcing slice. Here's the blade trail. then you get the blade trail there, bolus, and the arcing slice. Back to axe mace, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can see this already, how easy it loops. There's no complicated worrying about cooldowns. You literally can just do the same rotation over and over again on loop. It's actually really fluid and really smooth. One thing to note about this build is the reason you want to use this build over axe, pure axe, is because this gets slightly better DPS on big hitboxes. So when you're fighting a big hitbox, your whirlwind attack is going to hit 3 or usually all 4 times. One thing you can see here, since I'm using a small hitbox, is that I'm having to carefully manage my positioning so that I'm at max melee range, so that I get the maximum number of whirlwind attack hits. Against a big hitbox, you wouldn't have to worry about your positioning as much, and you'll get the max DPS that you can. But really, you shouldn't be using this on a small hitbox anyway, so it's not really anything to be super concerned with. But yeah, the rotation is very straightforward. As you can see, it just keeps looping like this indefinitely. So that's basically it. If you have any questions about this build or any of the others, I would be happy to answer it in the comments below. All right, so wrapping things up, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope it was useful for you warriors out there. It helps if you want to play in every optimal situation, if you have all 3 of these builds put together and you can switch between them as needed, and play whatever's best. If you just like one over the other, they're not really that big of a difference overall. You can kind of play anything anywhere and get away with it. But if you like to min-max, then yeah, definitely play the right build in the right spot, and do what looks best. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it, and I will see you next time.